Hi guys. Today for our daily drama check-in, we are going to talk about setting in a fable story. So our learning target today is I can recognize setting in a fable story. The fable we're going to use today is called The Town Mouse and the Country Mouse. Maybe some of you have heard of it and maybe some of you haven't. So whether you know it or not, go ahead and just pay attention. There once was a country mouse who lived in a nest under a hedge. Every day she scuttled about the fields collecting grains of corn. Sometimes, if she was feeling a little braver than usual, she crept into a nearby garden for a tasty treat. Quite often, she found bits of cheese rind in the compost heap or crusts of bread which had been thrown onto the lawn for the birds. One day she was visited by her cousin, the town mouse. "Oh, cousin," she squeaked, "what a lovely surprise! I have such a quiet life here in the country that I always look forward to seeing you again. I could happily listen all day to your stories about life in town. Do sit and tell me what's been happening." "Well, I hardly know where to begin," replied the town mouse. "I have so many adventures and eat so many wonderful feasts." "A feast is exactly what I'm going to give you now," interrupted the country mouse. "I found some very tasty cheese rinds this morning," she said proudly. The town mouse could hardly believe her ears. She squeaked with laughter as she watched the table being laid. "My poor cousin," she said, "what a dreary life you must lead. If cheese rinds is the best you can offer, I think I'll go home right now. Why don't you come and stay with me for a while? Everything is so exciting in town." And after some thought, her country mouse agreed to go with her, the town mouse. It was a long and frightening journey to the town mouse's home. When they reached the town, they kept to the back streets as much as possible. But there still were an awful lot of people around, and even worse, an awful lot of cats. The poor country mouse was shaking with fear by the time they reached the house where her cousin lived. "I don't think I should have come," she whispered as they tiptoed into the huge kitchen. "Oh, you'll soon change your mind," replied her cousin cheerfully. "Just look what's in here." The country mouse looked up, and there above her was a table laden with food. It was such a wonderful sight that she immediately forgot all her fears. "I've never seen so many goodies," she sighed happily. "And we've got the pick of them all," said her cousin. "Now sit yourself down and I'll bring you the most delicious feast you've ever had." A few minutes later, the two mice had an enormous pile of chocolate in front of them. But before they could take a single nibble, the door swung open and a big tabby cat burst into the room. They almost flew to the town mouse's hole in the skirting board, and even then they only just missed being crushed by the cat's great paw. "It's all part of the excitement of living in town," chuckled the town mouse. "Well, it's the sort of excitement I can do without," replied her cousin. "My life may be dull, but at least it's safe. As soon as the coast is clear, I'm going back to the country, and I'm staying there for good." The end. Now, we're going to talk about setting in this story. How many settings were there, first of all? So if we answer that, there were two, right? There was the country and there was the town. And each one had its different qualities about it. How did the setting impact the story? The setting was the story in this. So the setting impacted the relationship between the two mice, and it affected what events transpired. So in the countryside, they had the rhymes, the cheese rhymes, and they were safe, but it was boring and dull. When they went to the town, that was the new setting. And in the city, there was danger. There were cats, there were people, there were so many things that they had to watch out for. And so that is called room conflict in theater, when there are other things that you have to be aware of. A question I have for you guys is, could this story be removed from its setting and retold in a different setting and still be valid? And I think the answer could be yes or no, depending on what you use to back that up. Now, sometimes what theater people like to do is they like to take a traditional story and redo the setting. So the story is the same, but it's set in a different thing. Could you imagine if this story was set under the ocean? What would it be like? They probably wouldn't be mice, right? But you could still tell the story of the town fish and the country fish, right? And maybe those settings would look different. Maybe the one fish comes from the open ocean and the other one comes from a coral reef. So there are things like that you can do with theater, where you have this story and you analyze it for the setting, and then you take it and you change that setting in order to retell it. It's the same story. It'll have the same message and the same moral. It just is in a different place. And then you get to think about all those fun things on how would that change the story. So that's just a little something that I wanted to do concerning the town mouse and the country mouse and setting. Thanks for tuning in.